All right, we're going to go ahead and give this a shot again. Our internet seems to be back up and stable. So your next class should resume within the next 5 to 10 minutes, Lord willing. If our stream cuts out again today, we're not going to try to pick it back up. We'll just try to pick it back up tomorrow. Okay, so that's just a heads up. Your teacher should be in shortly. Check. Okay. All right, welcome to pre-algebra. We're going to go ahead and get started pretty much right away with our quiz today. That's really all we're doing. So distance learners, you need to get the quiz code from your parents. It's been sent to them in My School Works. This is how we'll handle quizzing and testing as far as for distance learners. Okay, I've given you guys an account directly to your student email. Okay, and so in your student email, you've received a code for the online testing. Now, what's going to happen is each quiz or test, your parents are going to get a code because your parents are responsible to proctor the exam or quiz. So here's what's expected of you with these quizzes. There are no calculators allowed. There is no textbook allowed. So you guys need to go through and do the quiz. All you're allowed out on your desk, in addition to the quiz being open on your screen, is a piece of paper and a pencil, so you guys can do the work on paper and then input the math answers. Okay, so that's the idea here. Okay, again, your parents are responsible to proctor it. They have been sent the information they need, as well as the quiz code in My School Works. So that's how we're going to handle that. Those of you here in the Distance Learning Center, you will be given your quiz in just a couple moments. So I highly recommend taking this time to do some last-minute studying. All right, I'll see you guys later.
Okay.
How about now?
Hello, hello.
Okay,
I think it's working. Yeah, I don't know what is going on.
All right. I'm on.
Thank you. Sorry. All right. Sorry about that. Mic wasn't working. Turn it off. Turn it back on. We are good to go. It looks like now we have some volume. Thank you, brother Mike, for trying to contact me. Let me know. But just to let you know, okay. So if you haven't turned in your homework, go ahead and turn that in the tray. We'll collect that when I get down there. But after that, grab a pen or pencil, put everything away. It is the thing you guys love to hear. We have a pop quiz. So pull out a sheet of paper. We just have a few questions over the reading last night. We'll get through it quickly, and we will start with that. But again, pull out that sheet of paper. We'll begin with that quiz. We only have a few notes to go over today. We'll go through those. Hopefully you guys can get those down and learn something new today. With history, again, we're still talking in these beginning times, how everything in the beginning of history was started and how we got to where we are today. And we'll talk about, that's what we're talking about this year, history of the world and how we got here today. But hopefully you have that sheet of paper. Make sure you put your name, 7th and 8th grade history or history of the world, and the date. Today is the 15th. And you can put pop quiz or anything on there, but just make sure you have your name, class, and date, and we shall begin. Number 1, I'll ask the question, you put down the answer. I'll go through them about twice, all the questions. I'll read about twice, and then I'll go over them again one more time at the end. After you take the quiz, again, just either turn this in or put it on the desk in the front, and we'll grade those later once I'm down there. Number 1, what city became the center of Mesopotamia? What city became the center of Mesopotamia? Very popular city in the Bible, in the Old Testament. What city became the center of Mesopotamia? Number 2, what is the rule by one city or people over other cities or peoples? Again, what is the rule by one city or people over other cities or peoples? When one nation or group of people have rule over other nations, city, or people. Give you a second to answer that. Number 3, who united all of Mesopotamia? We're learning about him today in our notes, but you should have read about him last night. Who united all of Mesopotamia under his rule? Who united all of Mesopotamia under his rule? We're talking about him today. If you don't spell his name completely right, that's okay. Just make sure you have at least, I can tell you knew who we're talking about. It can't be some random guy say, oh, yeah, I knew you were talking about, I didn't know how to spell it. It has to be somewhat close. Number 4, what are rules that people follow in living together? That one should be real easy. They're things that we have in our country, in our states, right? What are these rules? Sometimes in our house, our parents consider these rules like this. What are rules that people follow in living together? We have strict guidelines, or called what? What are rules that people follow in living together? And number 5, our last one, true or false? So just put true or false. Hammurabi understood the necessity for equality under the law. True or false? Hammurabi understood the necessity for equality under the law. And for bonus, I like to do some bonus questions just in case you're like, oh man, I didn't do the reading last night. I don't remember any of this stuff. I'm struggling. Just to give you bonus. Maybe this will help you. Hopefully, again, it's not going to be exactly easy. It is bonus. But just an easy bonus, maybe get to know me. What year was Mr. Coral, or me, what year was I born? What year was I born? Just give you a few seconds to throw down an answer. What year was I born? And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to go through the questions one more time, and then you'll turn those in, and we shall begin the little bit of notes we're doing today. Number 1 was, what city became the center of Mesopotamia? Number 2 is, what is rule by one city or people over other cities or people? Number 3 is, who united all of Mesopotamia under his rule? Number 4, what are rules that people follow in living together? And number 5, true or false? Hammurabi understood the necessity for equality under the law. And then the bonus was, what year was I born? Okay, so go ahead and turn those in, and then get back to your desk or seat and pull out your notes, as we're going to go through these notes quickly, and then I'll come down there and help you with whatever we have questions on. And we have to review for our quiz 2 that we actually have tomorrow. Our actual quiz 2 tomorrow we'll review once I get down there. So give you guys a couple seconds, turn those in, get back to your seats. Those who are tuning in, hopefully you can hear me and everything by now. You're paying attention during that pop quiz. Send me your answers, send pictures of those. Hopefully I can trust you and you do not cheat and write the right answers in after anything, but don't use your book or notes. Turn that in now. You can send me a picture, and you can also keep that hard copy turned in on this Friday when you'll pick up everything for next week. If you have any questions, let me know. If you didn't hear the quiz, you gotta make sure you're paying attention, but just contact me and I'll get those questions to you so you can take it. Just let me know. Communication is key, certainly during this distance learning process. All right, you should be back in your desk, and we're going to begin our notes right where we left off. Yesterday we were talking about with Abraham and the different ways of religion and beliefs of many gods, which is what class? What is someone that worships many gods? It's a polytheist, poly meaning many, and theist is belief in God. So the belief and worship of many gods. And then monotheist is the belief and worship of, or someone that worships one God. Monotheist is someone that worships one God. And then we talked about a humanist is someone who worships or puts themselves in the place of God, or they worship themselves as if they are God. We did talk about a few false gods. We had Anu and Nani, or Inanni. Anu, and then we had Nani, which is, we have the god of the sky and then the god of the moon. With that, we talked about in our notes, or not Nani, sorry, Nana. And then we had Ur-Nammu, that was the king of Ur, who helped build the ziggurat. The ziggurat was like that tower with one large square, large building, and then another one on top, and then another one on top, and on the top you had that temple. It was a large tower temple, as it's referred to, and they would worship their false gods inside of that, especially Nana. And then at the end we talked about how Abraham was faithful. His faithfulness and trust in God, how God called him from his land of Ur, where they believed and worshiped these gods. God called him to leave his nation and his people to go and leave into the wilderness. And Abraham, because of that, because he trusted and believed and obeyed God, all right, on a whim of faith, that he would be blessed with nations being named after him and blessed with many things from God. We talked about that yesterday, and today we are beginning with the topic of Hammurabi's, this man we're going to learn about and we read about, Babylonian Empire, his empire. So the last note we had was number 26, which is Sumerian temples also served as commercial and business centers. Remember, they would sell and trade within these towers or temples. And number 27, that's where we're starting today. Number 27, an empire. Again, we just had this in our pop quiz. Hopefully you knew it. An empire is something, or the rule by one city or people over other cities or people. Is the rule by one city or people over other cities or peoples. Okay, it's when one nation, empires are made by when one nation is ruling over lots of smaller nations or other nations. So this creates, instead of being separate nations, this creates an empire. One large empire, which is lots of nations or cities or people combined. Number 28, Babylonia. Babylonia was the name given to the empire that included Sumer and the surrounding lands. Its center was, we talked about this in our pop quiz, was Babylon. The center of Mesopotamia area was Babylon. So Babylonia was the name given to the empire that included Sumer and the surrounding lands. Its center was Babylon. Babylon, the city of the original Tower of Babel, like we talked about previously, has always symbolized the world's alternative to building a culture on foundations of godly obedience and faith. Before we follow Abraham around the Fertile Crescent to Canaan, remember, so Abraham left this area of Ur, and he's going around the Fertile Crescent to Canaan, traveling Canaan that we're going to talk about later. Let us see what happened in this time period of Babylonia from 2000 BC to 1500 BC. So we have the rise of Babylon under this man named Hammurabi we're about to mention. Number 29, Mari, M-A-R-I, Mari and Larsa are the two great cities to the north and south of Babylon. Mari and Larsa are the two great cities to the north and south of Babylon. These places were sometime after the fall of Ur, this place Abraham left. A group of Amorites established a kingdom at Babylon and began to extend their power over nearby cities. These cities, again, north and south, were Mari and Larsa. But Babylon's future remained uncertain with those cities. So now we're going to talk about this man that I've been mentioning a few times, an extraordinary man. So the city's situation, Babylon's situation, changed drastically around 1800 BC, so between that 2000 and 1500, when a king named Hammurabi, so that's note number 30, Hammurabi is a king of Babylon who conquered the kingdoms surrounding Babylon and united all of Mesopotamia under his rule. So Babylon was struggling at this time, right? They had some nations still under them, but they were struggling. But then this king named Hammurabi came along, and he ended up conquering all these surrounding nations and areas to make Babylon great again and united all of Mesopotamia under his rule. So with number 31, Hammurabi personally supervised the details of his vast empire, right? So he created this empire, he's king, so he's ruling over these nations, making the laws and how they have to obey and live with the help of his bureaucracy. Bureaucracy. Well, what is a bureaucracy? Number 31, bureaucracy, B-U-R-E-A-U-C-R-A-C-Y, if you didn't know how to spell it, is an organized group of people appointed by a ruler to help him govern. Right? It's an organized group of people appointed by a ruler to help him govern. Okay, it's almost kind of like we have a president in America. He's not quite a king. It's not quite the same, but we have a president. Right? He's kind of like the ruler or the guy that's supposed to lead our nation, United States of America. And then with the president, we have all these governors, and we have the chair of commerce and all these different people, the Senate, that are people that help the president, right? They're supposed to mentorship, give him things to go on, try to help him make the right decisions, right? Or if they're making wrong decisions, to help them be in base, so they can't have too much power like a king. Excuse me. This bureaucracy was a group that was there to help the king be able to make the right decisions. Now, the king didn't always listen, but they were people to help. And they were people also to help govern. So sometimes the king is only one man. He can be in one place. He has this bureaucracy to help him govern these nations, certainly in a large empire. Number 32, okay, we're going to start with Shamash. Shamash, or Shamash, is the sun god of the Babylonians. Hammurabi claimed that Shamash gave him laws for the people to follow. Remember, we talked about this, how a man would lead because he would say, and maybe he would become king of a nation or something like this. Well, Hammurabi was a king of a great empire. He claimed that Shamash, this false god of the sun, gave him laws for the people to follow, right? So it's probably Hammurabi's personal ideas and laws that he wanted the people to follow. He was the one that said, oh, I'm closest to this Shamash, this god of the sun, so you need to follow these rules. And remember, again, when people didn't follow the rules, they'd be threatened with, oh, our land's going to be cursed, or we're going to be punished. So they always feared, certainly the king, because they feared the god, the false god at this time, Shamash, the god of the sun. 33, so Hammurabi would claim, or he would give these laws. So what is a law? Laws are rules people follow in living together. Ding, ding, ding. That was also in the pop quiz. Laws are rules people follow in living together. All right? Laws, we consider them rules here at the school, right? We have a handbook. But for our school, you could also consider those laws. Those are laws for Calvary Christian School. At home, your parents have rules. Now, I'm sure not most people refer them to it, but those could be your parents' laws. They say, hey, you cannot do this. There's no ands, ifs, and buts about it, right? You have to do this. It is a law by your parents. Well, Hammurabi in Kings, Hammurabi specifically, would make these laws, which are rules people have or follow in living together. Number 34, promulgation. Promulgation. Okay, promulgation is this. It's making laws known. Okay, it's basically you take the law, right? Say the King Hammurabi or anyone has this law, and they want everyone to do this law. This is the term referred to as making the laws known. By having the laws written down for people, Hammurabi showed great wisdom and understanding about the nature of laws. Again, he wisely saw this necessity of this process of promulgation, which is making the laws known. Hammurabi had the laws written down and set up in a place where everyone could see them. Ignorance of the law could not be an excuse for disobedience. Okay, just like if we have rules at Calvary Christian, right? As a student of Calvary Christian, you're supposed to read the student handbook or the school handbook, right? And if you don't follow a rule, there may be a punishment to that rule or demerits to something you did. And you can't say, as a student, you say, well, I didn't know, right? Because you're supposed to read the handbook. Just like at this time, Hammurabi would make these laws that people would have to follow, and he'd make them so everything would work. Well, Hammurabi made these laws, and he would put them in a place that people would be able to see them, whether it's at a temple or at a large building and in this court so everyone could see it. It would be probably very large so they'd be able to see it. And then if someone said, oh, I didn't know this was a law, or I didn't know it said this, I didn't know you said this, King, they had no excuse. So the punishment would be unexcusable. Number 35. Okay, so sometimes there's imperfect laws, right? Imperfect laws. Okay, so with that, just as it is not enough in games to have merely any rules, it is not enough in life to have merely any laws. We respect Hammurabi's laws were far from perfect, right? They're probably to his own agenda a little bit. This is obvious when they are compared to the laws that God gave his people through Moses centuries later. God always makes the punishment fit the crime, but Hammurabi did not. Okay, so remember he made his own punishments. He kind of took it in his own power, but a much lower value on human life. Hammurabi did not value human life. That was also a question in pop quiz. In his laws, material possessions were the most important things, so like taxes or just things that he wanted to accumulate. Hammurabi's also failed to recognize the necessity for equality under the law, which means that all people would commit the same crime should be punished in the same way. Okay? So, with equality, we mentioned equality under the law. Equality, that's our next note, number 35. Equality under the law is the idea that all people who commit the same crime should be punished in the same way. That kind of makes sense, right? You would think if we all, say me and Brother Mike, did the same crime, we both stole a candy bar from the candy store, right? And the punishment, whether it be a fine or put in jail or anything like that, right? We would receive the same punishment. But under Hammurabi, that wasn't always the case. You didn't always receive that same punishment. So we had that unequality under the law. 36, Inanna. So we had Nana, which was the god of the moon. Now we have Inanna, which is the Sumerian goddess of love. Sumerian goddess of love. So these people, we have the culture of summer changed little during Hammurabi's Babylonian Empire. Right? He kept this law very strict. So advances were made in arithmetic and astronomy. Elaborate new dictionaries improved the language, and Babylon became an impressive city with great palaces and temples. But most of the Sumerians' basic beliefs about gods continued. All these false gods, right? Remember, Sumerian was taken over. They had these false gods. People that took them over would take all of the wise ways of the Sumerians, but now they also took some of those false gods with them. It's still stuck. The invading peoples adopted the same gods, merely renaming them. For example, the Sumerian goddess of love, Inanna, was renamed. So Inanna is the Sumerian goddess of love. So the same false god was renamed to Ishtar. 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 And this is the Babylonian name for Inanna. So Inanna is the Sumerian goddess of love. Ishtar is the same person, just a name that was renamed by Babylon. Okay, just a few more notes. The gods remain basically the same. Therefore, the people's behavior based on belief in these gods also remained much the same. They just renamed the gods. So maybe they thought they were different, but they were the same thing. So like the god of the sun was something, and we would just change it to something else, right? But it'd be the same concept. They would just say, oh, now we serve this person, and I'm the beloved of him. One extremely important change in the beliefs about the gods, these false gods, did occur. Marduk. Well, who is Marduk? Number 38. Marduk, M-A-R-D-U-K, is the chief god of the city of Babylon. He became king of all the gods. So this Marduk character, or false god, was the king of all the lowercase g gods. Marduk is the chief god of the city of Babylon. Suddenly became the king of all the gods. This change did much to elevate Babylon in the eyes of the people. To oppose Babylon or Hammurabi invited disfavor in the eyes of Marduk, the king of the gods. So this is how Hammurabi, remember, they would say they're the most beloved of this god. They made up Marduk, the king of all the gods. So whether these different nations worshiped different gods, one worshiped the god of the moon, one worshiped the god of the sea, one worshiped the god of the sun, one worshiped whatever, right? So now there's this false god of Marduk. He's the king of all the gods. So we have all these false gods, and then you have this head, this king, right? And this is Marduk. Well, Hammurabi, he really focused this because if people disobeyed, because maybe they say, oh, we're not going to obey Hammurabi because he believes in the sun god, so we're going to do our own thing. They didn't obey the law. Well, he said, well, now there's the king of all the gods, Marduk. If you don't obey me because I'm the servant of Marduk, then you're disobeying the king of all the gods. And that's how he would persuade or demand respect and obedience. And this finally led to the fall of Hammurabi's Babylonian Empire as he portrayed polytheism and humanism and all these things. Hammurabi ruled for 42 years, beginning around 1800 BC, but the kings that followed were unable to hold on to the empire that Hammurabi had built and maintained. Attackers from the outside struck repeatedly into the 1500s BC, so 300 years from 1800 when Hammurabi became king. For 42 years he reigned his empire. Remember, it was a large, vast empire. He brought all of Mesopotamia together, but once he did not reign after those 42 years, so probably 258 years, people were attacking, trying to bring this nation and empire down. So the city of Babylon itself fell into enemy hands after all that 260 or 58 years. The great rock upon which Hammurabi's laws were carved was eventually buried and forgotten. Not until AD 1901 was it uncovered. This rock stands in a museum today at one of the few reminders of the great Hammurabi and his empire. Okay, how very different are the reminders we have of Abraham, who followed God's call to a strange land, believing the promise that he would father a great nation, right? Two different lives, two different people, two different ways they came to this somewhat fame, right? But Hammurabi's was short. Although it was great, it was short because it was all put together by man. Where Abraham, although it might have taken time, right, and it extended a long time, it still would go through all of time. Well, that's where we're ending the notes today. For those who are live streaming, I will assign the homework. Make sure you send in that pop quiz so I can get that graded. But tonight's homework is read pages 15 and 16, so just the next page, 2.4. And then you're doing page 16, so section review 2.4, questions 1 through 5. So again, read page 15 through 16, and then page 16, 1 through 5. If you have any questions, you can contact me via my phone number. You have it in the syllabus. My email or my school's works. Just let me know if you need anything or you don't have something. Again, tomorrow we have a quiz. We're going to review for that in class. If you have any questions, distant learners, ask me. I can send you a little review sheet or what you need to know for the quiz tomorrow. Just let me know, contact me, and I will get that to you. Have a good day, and we will see you tomorrow.